Such a well-behaved crowd. We're just going to get right into it. Thanks everyone for coming. Thanks to the studios at Key West for getting the air conditioning cranked way down. If any of you are cold right now, talk to me in an hour and we'll see how we're doing. And something you're going to see is a recurring theme through the night. While we do very much thank the studios at Key West, we do pay for this space. And as Sheldon would like me to continually explain, please join Hometown, because your donations go strictly to putting on these events. To get started, I'd like our panelists to introduce themselves, that way I won't screw up, butcher their names, or make them work at some other place. So Larry, starting at the end.
Larry Kahn, editor at Keynoter.
Naja, Girard, publisher and editor at Key West, the newspaper, the Blue Paper.
Bill Becker, news director at US1 Radio.
Kay Harris, editor of the Key West Citizen.
Thank you guys. If you've never been here before, the reason we do this is Hometown is nonpartisan and we really try to stay as neutral as possible. With that, we give our local media representatives the ability to ask questions, with the one caveat that if they ask a candidate when they stop beating their wife or something, I will step in and say that's not an appropriate question. We've rarely had a problem with that, but it keeps us neutral and lets them ask the tough questions. Our first group tonight is going to be Utility Board, then we're going to go to County Commission. We're going to bring all the mosquito control primary candidates up together. We have a little change in City Commission, I'll explain that later, and then we're going to wrap up with the mayor. We have a bit of time tonight. We're figuring about 20 minutes each time. As we see things go, I may adjust. We are also looking to have, if for the primary question, a candidate will get 90 seconds to answer. If the opponent wants to say, they'll get 30 seconds to rebut. We'll kind of play that as it goes to try to, you don't have to use the whole 90 seconds. But the more questions, the better. And we'll, like I say, we'll try to be a little free-form and get as much information out there and try to differentiate candidates. I want to make one last call for Vidal. He is a candidate, and if he doesn't know about it, I don't know how. So, one last thing. Our illustrious Vanna's up here. We'll be giving you a little 30-second thing. So when you're up here, it's very hard to see them, but we've got to try to do that. So with that, let's just go right onto it. Kay Harris would like to ask the first question of the Utility Board members. And for you panelists, it's up to you what you want to do. You can ask a particular candidate a particular question. You can ask them both a question. Again, that's where the 90-30 rule comes in. And we'll just see, let it go as it goes. But what do we, especially when we have more, it gets boring if they answer the same question and everything. So try to spice it up. Okay.
I'm curious, Tim, let's go to you first. You are the incumbent in this race. You've been there for a few years now. Can you tell me why, perhaps, the Energy Board paid for solar arrays at the city, but did not do so for your own building?
Two questions, it's two parts actually. The one part is the City Hall. The reason that we put the solar panels in City Hall is for our BP money, and we thought to use the BP money, we certainly didn't want to do something just for Keys Energy, but for the community. And I think that putting the money to the solar panels to the city at City Hall will help pay their, I think pretty much it will clear their electric bill out most of the time, but of course when the sun's not up. And the reason that we didn't put solar panels on our building, because as we all know, we are a nonprofit. And to get the solar panels and to try to get the LEED certification, as our budget mattered, we could not afford our budget to possibly build that without raising rates. And my job is to keep the ratepayers' rates down.
Bill?
Okay, question for Carol. There are 2 solar amendments on the ballot statewide this fall, one in August, one in November. Where do you stand on each one and why?
Thank you, Bill, and thank you, Hometown, Todd, Tim. This is a really exciting time for me, so I appreciate being up here. Yes, you're right. There's 2 amendments coming up. The one, which is Amendment 4, is on the same ballot. It's an August 30 ballot. And it's really about a tax break for those people that want to put, for commercial, because a personal already has it, residential already has it. So you get a tax credit if you put any kind of solar or wind kind of structure on your building or whatever. So it's a tax credit. It is a constitutional amendment, but that is consumer friendly. In November, which is Amendment 1, that is a different kind of amendment, and that too is constitutional. And that's the important element about it. There's 2 organizations, and one is supported by, which is called Floridians of Florida for Solar, Consumer for Solar. They're the ones that are actually backed by Florida Power and Light and the big companies. And basically what that comes down to is they want the constitutional right to sell our solar power. So no consumer can sell it. They will basically want to own the sun and the power that comes from it. My positions, yes in August on Amendment 4 and no in November for Amendment 1. Thank you.
Yeah, I know I only have 30 seconds, but yes, we need to vote for Amendment 4 on August 30th, and we definitely do not want to vote in November for Item 1, because it gives us the opportunity in the Keys to finally do something for ourselves and not rely on the capitalist.
Yes, this is a question for Tim Root. Last time you campaigned, you said you'd look into what could be done to do away with the online credit card processing fee, and those with multiple accounts pay multiple fees, in fact, for a single transaction. Why has the board done nothing about this?
Actually, Naja, we have. We went and we interviewed 3 different credit card companies, and Paymentus, who was our original credit card company, had to step up to the plate, and we actually now have free online banking with your checking account. You don't have to pay a thing. And we've also, instead of paying a percentage now of all your multiple accounts, it is $3.75 per 1,000. So we have dropped the rate very low. And that's the best that we could do with all 3 RFPs that we're in.
The Keys Energy is you got customers from the 7 Mile Bridge South, but yet only city residents can run for the board and vote for that election. Do you think that makes people up the Keys feel disenfranchised? And if you could change it, how would you?
To me?
Actually, we should do Carol because she's...
That's fine.
That's true. The reason why is because when City Electric was first established, it was just the city. And then when the tie line came in, we went up to the 7 Mile Bridge, which of course is unincorporated Monroe County. So really the distinction lies between what jurisdiction is where you live. I would like to see representation up the Keys. What I don't know is what it would take to do it. I've heard a lot of different things, and I think it really needs to be looked at. Some people say it's money. Other people think it's politics, and I would imagine it's a little bit of both. So from that level, yes, I would like to see it. I'd like to have my eye on it. And one of the things that I do have experience in is, legislative issues and so forth. So I would bring that experience to it, and I would take a look at that.
Yeah, I'd like to address that too. Yes, we do serve the mile marker 41 to this side of the 7 Mile Bridge. And if we all look back, in 1973, there was a state amendment put in to the Constitution that declares that the city of Key West has a franchise and that they formed our utility board. And Key West, the city, actually owns the franchise, and we actually pay a portion of that money to the city of Key West. And in that ordinance, or in that amendment, it says that the people in Key West run the utility board at this time. It would be great for a change, but it would take a long time and a lot of state legislation.
Okay.
Carol, this is directed towards you. I'm curious, you work for the county, you've mentioned that several times. Do you see your position with the county as any sort of conflict with some of the decisions you would be making with the Keys Energy Board?
I actually see quite the opposite. One of the things I've done while I've been in Key West for the many years and doing the different things I've done in Key West is I really believe in strong collaboration, whether it be between different agencies, different governments, different nonprofits, or whatever it may be. So I think the fact that even if we just take a look at legislative issues pass my desk every day. I'm the one that can help be the watchdog on that board to see what's happening with solar, to see what's happening with incentives for everyone in terms of bringing solar in, and also to see what Florida Power and Light may be doing in terms of power grabs, because they are trying to take over the different municipalities. They've done it with the co-ops, they want to do it. And so I think it's actually an advantage, because I do see so many things across the desk and I know the conversations that are going on. So in this day and age, we have to do things collaboratively, and I know what left hand is doing and right hand.
Question for Tim. You're 4 years on the utility board. Three. Okay, 3. What have you accomplished? What have you spearheaded initiatives?
Thanks, Bill. I have been put on the auditing committee when I first started, but as everyone knows, my heart of hearts is in construction, and I have since been put on the construction committee. And at the beginning of my term is when we started the service building for $6 million. At that time, the contract was through, and I didn't get to do much of advising on that. But when the contract was executed, I've been at every project management meeting. I've advised our team of project managers on our construction team on the budget and on how to get done early. And with that, my pride in this whole thing is that we've done a $6 million job with 0 change orders and 1.5 months ahead of schedule. And right now we are working on the Ralph Garcia building with the same company, Biltmore, and that is what I project to do with that job also. And in our infrastructure with engineering, in the next 10 years, we have approximately $16 to $20 million in infrastructure, and we're setting up now ways to do RFPs and bidding and using unit price to try to get the best possible savings we can for all the ratepayers.
Naja?
Yes, Carol, along the same lines. If you do become a board member, what will you spearhead?
Thank you for asking that. I think there's 2 responsibilities when you sit on the board. One is reliability and the other is powering the future. In terms of reliability, infrastructure is very important, obviously, but it goes way beyond a concrete box. Reliability is also in the boardroom. Reliability is in the field in terms of succession plan. We're going to be losing some of our top critical people to retirement. We need a succession plan to follow that through. And it's also reliability, again, in Tallahassee to make sure that we've got our eye on what's going on. In terms of powering the future, we need a plan, we need an outlook about how this community should power the future. Is it solar, is it wind, what should it be, and who should it be for, how can we make that happen? And finally, my favorite, I'll say, right at the moment is, and I've spoken with the school board about it, we're a member of the school board, I'd really like to see a Keys Energy Science and Engineering Fair for our kids in high school. Something that's competitive on the state level, something that's competitive on the federal level, so we can sort of home grow our own engineers and innovators of the future. So that's one of my first things would be the science fair. Thanks, Naja.
I guess I'll ask Tim first. Getting back to the solar, and the mayor here can correct me if I'm wrong, but I understand solar arrays aren't allowed in Old Town Key West because they're considered mechanical. Should the board, is that correct?
No.
That's not?
That's not correct.
Okay, well then I'll get to the second part of my question. How could you expand efforts to get people to accept solar more, notwithstanding the cost?
Well, I think accepting solar has a lot to do with the cost, especially in Key West, to afford to live here and afford to do the solar. I think in the near future we'll have code compliance issues in the construction industry that's going to require some energy saving things, and I think solar is going to be one for the hot water heaters and everything else. But as far as getting solar into town, we still are capable of putting solar panels on the back of your house, even in the Heart District. We just can't put them out front where they're seen on the facades.
Actually, we can. Carol, you can respond.
Just to add to that, there's a lot of incentives coming up for homeowners to put solar on. Different programs. One is called PACE, which is the Property Assessment Clean Energy Act, that I know the county and city are working on right now to make it more affordable, but to put solar on top of your home or whatever it may be. And there's some other solar ideas out there. I don't know if you're familiar with the C organization. They're really helping in terms of the legislative things to make it so that we can incentives, so there can be monetary incentives, but things like we're the only state, now we're one of 10 states, that we don't have a renewable plan in terms of the state requirement. And that's something that we need to work on to make that better.
Okay, we have time for one more go through here. Kate? Ask your question. If you can't ask it, I'll tell you.
I'm just curious, and I'll put this out to both of you. I have yet to meet your other candidate at any of the previous forums, and I'm just curious what your thoughts are as to why perhaps he's not here campaigning with you.
I'm fine with them answering that.
I can't answer that. I don't know. I don't know.
I won't answer that, but he was here last year, 3 years ago.
Bill, do you have an answer or do you have a question that you can?
We want to hear your answer, Bill.
Carol, what, in view of climate change, what should the board be doing that it's not doing right now?
Well, I think first of all, we have to have the conversation. You know, the county and the city both have sea level rise plans and so forth, and Keys Energy is a part of it. But we really need to have a plan so we can sit at the table with the city and county on sustainability. That would be one of the first things that I would suggest that we do to see what we can do, what we should be doing. It's our responsibility to bring the power plan forward to the community and to transition us into the next decade.
Yes, FMPA, which is Florida Municipal Power Association, they are who we get our energy from. And about April meeting, we were approached by them, and you will all be getting a survey actually soon in Key West. And we're talking about putting large solar arrays where our generation facilities are, so we can use their infrastructure to power all 27 counties that are a member of our organization and nonprofits. That conversation, like I said, has started in April. The survey's out, and that is a big thing for Key West.
Naja?
Yes, for Tim Root. Consumers want low costs, but housing for employees is scarce and expensive. Is Keys Energy paying its employees a fair wage, considering the cost of housing? And how much does the lowest paid employee earn?
I am proud to say that we are not inequality in Keys Energy. We have very good base rate payments. Most of them start at $14 to $16 an hour. What we do, she was talking about succession planning right now. We are planning for the future for our younger kids to stay here, and we pay them a very fair wage, and they get a very good set of benefits. And we have a very, very compliant employee base that's very committed, very talented. And we're lucky to have them because, as you know, we are at the end of the grid. And without our guys being on the ground here, we could be the last ones to be fixed. And we're usually the first ones up and running. So everyone, I think you talk with Keys Energy and their employees, they will tell you the same thing. We take care of our employees.
Last question should go to Carol. Keep it even.
Other than keeping the lights on, what would be your #1 priority for the coming year if elected?
Short term, it would be that science fair that I was talking about. I'd really like to see that evolve into something really terrific. Second to that, it would be planning, and that's succession planning, and that's truly planning our future in terms of how we're going to power our community, how we want to, how we can, what makes sense for us. We need to do a lot of research, we need to do a lot of study, and for instance, I've got a science background and education. That's something that I can bring to the table right there in terms of technology. So I think first thing would be school fair, and with that would be the planning, and that succession and how we're going to power our future.
Thank you, Carol. All right, that's it for Utility Board. Go ahead, have your 30 seconds.
Yeah, I just like to say thanks to everybody for getting me in 3 years ago, but I'd really like to talk about succession planning too, because we really are in the midst of it. We have a lot of people in the baby boomer age that are getting out, and we are making a succession plan, and it's very important. And that's where it brings up about the good wages that our younger people have, and to bring our younger people that live here back to our community and keep them here, which we really want, and keep our money here in Key West.
And Sheldon's correcting me. We should have a closing statement from each of you. So let's say 1 minute. I'm sorry, I was just trying to move things along. So go ahead, Carol, 1 minute.
I am the only candidate with the skill set and experience to keep the rates low, to defend the reliability, whether it be in Tallahassee, whether it be in the boardroom, or whether it be in the field. And I'm the one with the skill set and experience that can transition this community into the next decade of power. I've got a science background, degree in engineering. I'm the only one with corporate, nonprofit, government and proprietor strategic planning experience. I'm familiar with legislative activities, proven track record, and fresh ideas and reliable board service. I'd love your vote on August 30th. Shrek just like the movie. Thank you.
I hope you vote for me on August 30th. Secession planning is a big thing, and we are on top of it right now. As far as legislation, we do a lot of lobbying, and we have a lot of people behind us. But the biggest thing that we do, and my experience is one thing in the construction business, which all board members should have, and keep costs low for the ratepayers. And the biggest thing, excuse me, is to make sure that rates are kept low, and to find out how we can succeed and down the future in a greener future.
Thank you, guys. And thanks for being first to help us get moving along here. If Sylvia Murphy and Robbie Majeska would come on up. While they're coming up, I want to thank our guru of audio, AV in Paradise in the back, Kelly Friend. Over the years of all the things we've done, I think our sound makes these events because it keeps people quiet and you get to hear what everybody says. There's more to it than you think, because people talk like this, talk like this. Kelly's back there doing it all. As much as we love Kelly, we still have to pay her, though. That's why it's important to join Hometown. With that, something I didn't do for the utility board. 10 seconds, would you each introduce yourselves? Just 10 seconds. No platforms, just say who you are, why you're up here.
I'm Sylvia Murphy. I am the County Commissioner from District 5, Key Largo. Takes in Ocean Reef, Key Largo, and Tavernier. And I'm going to go for another 4 years.
Robbie.
Hi, I'm Robbie Majeska, and I'm new to you guys here in Key West, but I've been living in Key Largo for the last 18 years. I moved there when my children were born, so I could raise my children in a small community and be part of our community. I've been elected for the last 8 years on the Key Largo Wastewater Treatment District, and that's it. Bye.
All right. Thank you, guys. All right, we're going to let Bill start off the questioning. Go ahead, Bill.
Commissioner Murphy, over the past year we've seen an effort to go to single-member districts for the county commission, similar to what the city commission is doing right now. How do you feel about that, and how do you feel about the fact that that movement has originated in the Upper Keys?
I think the movement itself is probably the worst idea I've heard in the 10 years I've been a commissioner. It goes against everything democratic. It goes against everything in fair voting. People will be voting for only 1/5 of their county commission. I don't know that they realize that yet. I think there are very few people who are going along with this. I think eventually most people realize they're cheating themselves. You get one vote. If you vote for me, you don't get to vote for anyone else. And therefore, when we need something, why would they care? They don't depend on your vote. It's human nature. It's a terrible idea.
Robert, 30 seconds.
Very complicated issue. And of course, since I'm running countywide, I have to say, yes, if I'm going to vote on an issue that entails Key West, I better know what the people in Key West want and want to get involved in the community on that. On the other hand, do we get to vote for the Alabama senator? Now that's 1/52nd of our vote. You know, do we get to vote, do other senators vote for our area? So it is important that we know all our issues, but sometimes, I don't know, if somebody has a problem here in Key West, they're not going to go to the Key Largo Commissioner. The Key Largo Commissioner is going to say, hey, talk to your commissioner in Key West. So it's, right now, I've asked some people in the audience about how it works here in Key West, and a lot of people want to do away with the single members in the Key West. They don't like it in Key West. It's very tough to run a campaign, 115 miles. But, you know, that's what shows that you want to do the job. You know, a lot of people don't want to put in the work. I'm willing to put in the work, and I think everybody else should be willing to put in the work and know what's best for everybody in Monroe County. So at this time, I'd rather see term limits.
No. You got 90. It's really, really contentious, maybe. Naja, please.
Yes.
Agree?
Robert Jessica, tell us one decision the BOCC has made that you disagree with and what you would have done differently.
Just one? I don't know all the answers. All the commissioners get to meet with Roman beforehand, and they go through every detail ahead of time, and it seems like a lot of things are decided ahead of time. Just the other day, the Land Authority, which is made up of the 5 county commissioners, or the same people that are in the Land Authority, they decided to buy, I think it was 8 pieces of property in Hawks Cay. And these are pieces of property that are right in the middle of the island, in that waterfront. They paid about $40,000 per home per site. Those sites could have been, somehow we should have figured out a way to make affordable housing, to make small homes. It's right in the middle of the island. It wasn't on a mangrove. So that's one thing I would have looked into a little bit different. We need to find places for people to live. If we could have gotten those lots, maybe put 2 smaller houses on 1 lot, then we could have had our firemen living in our community, our policemen living in our community. So that's the latest one.
Thank you, Rob. Sylvia, what was the bonehead decision the county commission made in your opinion? I get a little attitude.
Oh, I think we've made a lot of them. If any of you recall, the ones I'm talking about were the 4-to-1 votes, where I was the one.
I'm shocked.
And within a couple of months, believe it or not, things kind of turned around. And in many of those cases, we ended up with a 5-0. Maybe 5 or 6 months down the road, and maybe it was changed a little bit, but it got there. So we do pretty good.
Thank you. Larry.
This is, I guess, can be for Sylvia and then back. What has been the state and federal governments involved in our daily lives here? Which agency or agencies have been the most problematic to work with, and why? And I guess for Robbie, when you were on the board up there.
The most problematic is probably the state, because there are...
Which agency?
Which agency? Good question. DEO, the land use agency, they can be very problematic only because they don't always agree with what the people of Monroe County would like to see done with their land, on their land, etc. And in my opinion, the best one to work with, there are people who will disagree in this county, but I have great luck dealing with FDOT. I think basically they're good to work with, they're easy to work with, I don't poke them in the eye with a stick, and we do pretty well.
Well, there's a difference, because if I had to pick one, and I have been to Washington several times in the last 8 years. I've been to Tallahassee a number of times, because I've been elected for 8 years up in Key Largo, and I do get involved in these issues. But the FDOT has got to be the hardest one, as far as I can see, to deal with. Now, I understand why the county wants to be nice to them. FDOT spends a lot of money here. They put a lot of planting, they're going to put restrooms up at Rouse Marina. They spend a lot of money. They're going to do this, they're redoing the 7 Mile Bridge. So let's be nice to them. However,
Time, Robbie. It's only 30 seconds.
I'll get back to that one later.
Okay.
Sorry about that. Sylvia, then I'm going to direct this towards you. There's been a lot of discussion about a potential sin tax that the county has discussed somewhat about adding additional taxes to alcohol and cigarettes to pay for social service programs. First question is, do you support that? Second question is, why should taxpayers pay for the counties to pick what charities get money and what don't?
I'll take first part first. As it stands now, and what I know of it now, remember this has not come out in even draft form yet, much less finished form. What I know of it right now, I don't particularly go along with it. I think it's a fee. For some strange reason, I like to see what the citizens pay in an ad valorem venue. I don't like to see all these little bits of fees going around. Secondly, it is important that the citizens be willing to put in money for the nonprofits. You stop and think of what these nonprofits do for the lesser of our citizens, the people who cannot care for themselves all the time. If we did not have the nonprofits to do this with all of their volunteers, the county would have to do it. And I guarantee you it would cost at least 7-8 times as much if the county had to do it. We have to pay benefits, we have to give vacation time, etc., etc. And the county can't do anything as efficiently or economically as a nonprofit can. So I think the $2 million a year that we put out to the nonprofits is money extremely well spent.
Mr. Majeska,
Do I get to answer that question too? Or is that good?
the county's canal restoration program, how do you feel about how that's working, and what level of input financially should homeowners along those canals be required to put in?
Well, I live on a plugged canal that wasn't even rated in this canal system, and I've been to several of these canal restoration, and yes, I think the homeowners living on the canal should have some skin in the game. You know, if the county goes in and fixes a canal and the homeowners are still throwing their leaves and their dead fish and their garbage in the canal because they have no skin in the game, it doesn't matter. I was thinking maybe a 10%, you know, at least something. And I think on how we do these canals, which canals actually get picked to be done, should be based on when the homeowners can get together and say, okay, let's fix our canal. We'll all get together, let's put our canal at the top of the list. If they're willing to put some skin in the game to do that. When we were doing the sewers up in our neighborhood, my roads weren't going to get done. And we went around to all the homeowners in the neighborhood, and we got about 60% of them to chip in $1,500 a piece so that we could get our roads done at the same time. So I think if you get the homeowners involved in it, if we have any homeowners left over, you know, if anybody lives here anymore, if you get the homeowners involved in it, I think that's very important on which canals we do. We have local participation.
Just one follow-up to that. Would you support special taxing districts established to keep those canals funded?
If they're elected instead of appointed officials on these special taxing districts, that's possibly the only way we're going to be able to get it done. You know, I don't think we can put the county in charge of it. I think we need to have local control over it.
I'd like to get Sylvia's thoughts on that.
30 seconds.
Which part of that question, Bill?
Well, let's say special taxing districts, would you
Oh,
support
this
that?
is just the whole thing? Okay. There again, this is an idea that came up 2 or 3 weeks ago. It hasn't been fleshed out. It's very hard to say whether you agree with it or not, and you don't know the details, because you know what they say about the devil. So I will, on top of it, I'll say yes, I do think special taxing districts, I know they work. They work very well, and they spread a large cost over a lot of people, which makes it bearable, and it makes it fair. But we'll have to wait and see what those details are going to be.
Time, Sylvia. 30 seconds goes fast. Naja.
Yeah, this is for Sylvia Murphy. The Oceanside development on Stock Island is well underway, and there are several other similar projects in the works. The transferred market rate ROGOs from the mobile home parks are being turned into vacation rentals, and a good portion of the affordable units replacing the mobile homes are those high-priced, quote-unquote, affordables. Is that a problem that needs code revisions or better interpretation of the existing code, or is that the way you want it?
Hell no. God, have you heard me for the past year screaming about moderate? We have very low, low, median, and moderate. Moderate is about as close to market rate as you're going to get without slipping over the edge. It's very expensive. Could I afford $2,500 a month rent? I don't think so. And if I could, I don't think I'd want to. It really, it's out of sight. It's what people can get, and there is your moderate housing. It's technically affordable, and technically is about all you get. No, I don't like it, and yes, I think we do have to change it, and there are other people, I think, on the commission who agree with that. This has to cease, because what I keep saying is we're going to end up in this county with a whole lot of moderate housing and no more affordable allocations. And then what do? We're stuck.
Just as a follow-up, so has staff been given direction to actually try to write some code or make some changes? I mean, how, practically speaking, what are we doing about it?
Practically speaking, yes, it was started 3 or 4 months ago when I had a long talk with Maite, and she started with the, first they have to start with the legalities of this. There's no point in going into it if it's going to get shot down. So they're going through that, and then they have to do something that will placate DEO, of course. And we'll see where that goes. It doesn't come easy, and it doesn't come fast.
Larry.
In a similar vein, all the municipalities in the county, excuse me, have a height limit. Would you be open to considering raising the height limit allowability in unincorporated areas?
We should really do that to Larry first. Keep it fair.
I can't ask myself anything. You need
Just testing.
paying attention.
Probably.
All right, so that is one of the questions that I don't know the $50 million answer for, but I'm willing to look into everything. I think in the last 10, 15 years, we've made a lot of mistakes in stopping construction, stopping building for our people to live here, and we're so worried about high-rise buildings, high-rise hotels. If we need to worry about sea level rise, we need to keep our houses in a safe zone, but we also might need to do 2 stories. It might be something we have to look at. You know, I want to look at things from a new perspective, but when I look at it, I don't want a 3-level house going in front of my view. You know, so it might have to be something further away from the coast. You could go a little bit higher. I'm willing to look at things just a little different. I don't think we can continue on the same path now. We have to increase density or do something to make it affordable to live here.
I just, as a follow-up, I was talking about to increase density, not to, you know, raise your house for a single-family home. I was talking for apartment buildings or something like that.
Right. Increased density is something we do need to look at. And maybe we need to look at, I know smaller homes. I just came back from Austin, Texas, and the neighborhoods were beautiful with these little, smaller homes, all architecturally beautiful. There's got to be a way we can build these, but still their biggest problem is how much it costs in permits and fees to build these houses before you even start. So that's something we have to look at too.
Could have broken somebody's eardrum right then, couldn't I? I want you to know that I have a house. It was built as a caretaker cottage. It's right next door to my house. It is 480 square feet, and on that we put a porch that is 10 foot wide. We flipped the house around so that the front door faces the back of the lot, which is much prettier, flowering trees and all that business. That is a tiny house. I was amazed when I heard the dimensions of what they call a tiny house. That is it. And trust me, I have no problem renting it. Everybody's happy there.
All right, Kate, this will be the last full question. We'll have time for like one more run through of, so go through your papers and find quick questions. Okay, this can be a, whatever you got.
Okay, I get the last long one though, right? Okay.
Doesn't have to be long.
I'm curious, I'd like to ask this really of both the candidates if I could, of course. Last year and this last year you had a pretty extensive discussion about the Ragnar relay race and the use of US1 and the traffic and everything else that a race such as that brings. I'm curious to see how the both of you feel about moving forward with events such as those, if they should be allowed, should not be allowed, how do you draw the line and where do you draw the line?
Okay. I was one that voted against holding the Ragnar. They have and I want you to know this is why. The emails, the phone calls, the people stopping me when I came to Key West and up the Keys. I didn't even realize it bothered the upper Keys as badly until it came to the forefront. And it's not the Ragnar in itself, it's the way they have to run that race, with that relay race with all of those vans. US1 is not a back road. It's the main street of every town we have. And we all know what happens when anything, a duck crosses the road with her babies, for heaven's sake. Traffic is backed up 15 miles. And that we can't help. But we can help what we allow to go on. And I'm talking parades, bike races, and they're all very good. Oh, sorry. They're all very, very worthwhile causes. But we're going to have to put them somewhere else. Back roads, whatever, like the Le Mans bike race, whatever.
You did fine. This brings up something I think the mayor might be interested in. We could have Sheldon at city commission meetings and he can hold that 30 seconds. I digress. Robbie, talk about the Ragnar.
Well, if you talk to any citizen in the Keys right now, they don't want anybody else down here. Our traffic is horrible. It takes hours to get anywhere. I don't know if it's the same in the lower Keys, but sometimes it can take us an hour to get 5 miles on a weekend. So let's just not let anybody else come down here. Let's just stop it. Let's keep it out. Actually, one of the best times I ever had was when we had fires on both the stretch and Cartstown Road, and we were all happy down here. However, I don't have limited time. My family volunteered at the Ragnar. They volunteered. They were at Coral Shores High School selling hot dogs, selling water to all the people in this race, and I think there was positive happened from the Ragnar race.
Time, Robbie. Thanks. All right, quick questions. This is our speed round here.
Commissioner Murphy,
We'll have 1 minute to answer.
are you up for another 4 years on the commission? How's your health?
How does it look?
Good.
Naja?
Robert Majeska. Do you think the county code compliance is doing, what it's doing with illegal vacation rentals is too much, not enough, or is it just right?
Definitely not enough. You know, I know too many of my friends, too many people I know that are renting their houses and they're not following any of the codes. So I think the code compliance needs to be stepped up on these vacation rentals. I think we need to look into the homestead of these people. You know, there's many things. If you want to have a vacation home, fine, but you have to play by the same rules that all the hotels, everybody else has to do. So I think that needs to be stepped up a lot. Our code compliance people need to work on the weekends. I'm sorry, it's not a Monday through Friday, 9 to 5 job. We need to hire people that are willing to go out on the weekends. That's when you're going to see all these violations.
Thanks, Rob. Larry.
All the municipalities that have made a small amount of marijuana an infraction. You know, the county's been working on it for a really long time. Are you in favor of it or not? And I guess specifically for Sylvia, what is taking the county so long? The municipalities passed it very, very quickly.
Okay, I missed the first.
Making possession of small amounts of marijuana just like a traffic ticket.
Why did I think we passed that? I voted for it.
No.
I don't know. I'll have to tomorrow ask the county attorney what happened to that. But I thought we all voted for it. And I wondered why everybody wasn't walking around.
Robbie, you get to answer that too.
I sat in the Marathon Council meetings while they were talking about that, and the Mayor Marathon says, I have kids and I'm telling them not to smoke pot, but we're telling them it's okay, you can only smoke a little bit. So I think there's a little bit of a discrepancy there. Also, giving a police officer the discretion to arrest who he wants. Oh, I'm going to give you a ticket, but maybe I'm not going to give you a ticket. Giving them more power like that can be good and it can be bad. Now, my kids, they better not smoke even a little bit. There's no ticket for them. That's it. They're grounded, no car. That's over.
Okay. Kate, last of the speed round, and then you guys will have a minute to wrap up.
Okay. Robbie, this is for you. We got to hear you say earlier what you thought was something that the county had done wrong. What do you think they've done right?
The county has been working real hard on the environment. This is something that's billions of dollars to clean up the environment. I think we have a sea level rise group working. We have all sorts of ways, canal restoration with our wastewater products. You know, our environment is everything, and we need the county is really working hard. It's almost an impossible task, and they're trying as hard as they can to help with the environment.
Okay, well, thank you guys. Sylvia, for 1 minute, this is your wrap up here.
My wrap up, okay. Well, you know who I am, and you know how long I've been your commissioner. Think back. If you think you can stand another 4 years of me, vote August the 30th for Sylvia Murphy.
Conditions have become harder and harder for the average person to live and work down here. We can't solve our problems of tomorrow the same old ways that we've been doing it. It's time to look at a different way, to look at different things to do things. See my Running Man sign over there? It's a round sign. It's a different way of doing things. It's made out of, I did the best I could with a little bit of money, and that's, our county needs to watch its budget. They go over budget all the time, and I think that's where my strength will be. I'll be in there on the audit, on the budget, and we won't overspend, and we have to make it more affordable. So we can't keep doing things the same old politics. So vote for Robbie and Majeska for a new perspective.
Thank you both. We could have Janet Wood, Larry Zetwalk, Brandon Pinder, and Stephen Hammond. All four of you, come on up. Hope everybody enjoyed the food out front. I doubt there's ever any left, but once again, Fausto supplied it. Thank you, Jimmy Weekly. And I would be remiss not to remind everybody that we actually had to pay for that food, which is why you should join Hometown. Okay. While these guys are getting settled, Bill reminded me that this is such a busy year. Like for mosquito control, these are going to be primary opponents. They're running to get into the general election. Our last people, the county commission race, that will be decided in the primary because there's not a Democratic opponent. So even though they're both Republicans, everybody gets to vote. So it's an open primary for 2 Republicans. All right, so if Sheldon's done, I'm going to say something I don't know if we've ever said at Hometown, but I've really been looking forward to hearing the mosquito control panelists talk for, we're going to give them a half hour, because mosquito control, who would have thought, has become one of the most interesting and controversial subjects in Monroe County. So we'll get right, well, let's have each one of you introduce yourselves, but please, very briefly, just your name and 2 words about yourself. Janet, go ahead and start.
Hi, my name is Janet Wood. I'm a 60-year resident of Alamorada, Florida, a partner in Ace Hardware Alamorada since the 50s, a licensed interior designer and realtor for over 20 years. I'm running for District 4.
Hello, I'm Larry Zutwalk. I've been living down in Lower Matacumbe since 1968. I'm very involved in local activities, 3 or 4 different boards. I'm a volunteer firefighter, paramedic. I'm active. I made ran 2 calls this week. Real quick.
Hello everyone, I'm Brandon Pender. I'm a 7th generation Keys resident. I grew up in Alamorada. My grandfather served on the board for 18 years. I do have previous experience with the board, and I'm looking forward to bringing that to the table. Thank you.
My name is Stephen Hammond. I've been in the Keys for 16 years. I'm a realtor here in Key West with Island and Resort Realty.
Thanks, Stephen. Thank you, guys. And these are all Republicans, just for what it's worth. Naja's going to start us off. Mosquito Control Board.
Okay, I'll just start on the end, I guess. Janet Wood. I'm going to go right into the Oxitec release. Oxitec has proven their methods reduce the number of AE mosquitoes. Key Haven residents are concerned that there has not been a full-fledged study that would measure the possible impacts on humans and the environment. Should the Mosquito Control Board request that Oxitec fund a full environmental impact study before helping the company launch their product in the United States market?
My answer is yes. I think Oxitec maybe have some good science. I don't think it's proven. What I've seen at the meetings, the workshops, and what I've heard from Oxitec are from their pie charts, their figures. I don't think that anyone in Key Haven or anywhere else should be told what to do with their property or who is going to be tested on. I don't know if there are any other companies in the world that do this, but with most businesses, you get a quote from several companies. I haven't really heard some prices. They did mention something at one of the last meetings. But my answer is I think we need a little more time for Oxitec. Plus the EPA has not come back, or the FDA.
Larry?
The cost, and the board hasn't really spoken about that. They might have mentioned it once. No dollar figure has ever been thrown out there. Ultimately, there is going to be a cost. Oxitec isn't going to provide it for free. Should that be added as a property tax, a separate fee, when we finally know what it's going to cost, if it happens?
Who's your question to?
Oh, we can start with Steve. Yes.
Steve.
Can you ask the question again?
Getting back to the cost, as Janet said, they mentioned some dollar figures. I haven't heard any. If this does get approved, it's not going to be cheap. Oxitec wants to make money. Should this go on property taxes, be a separate fee? How should any kind of cost, when they determine it, be paid?
Well, I would assume that it would just be in with your taxes. And I know they do have some estimates on what it would cost, and Oxitec is trying to do this a lot more economical than possibly they would somewhere else, because this is the first place here in the United States that they were looking at. So I know they're trying to do that, yes. And I would assume it would be in with the taxes, your tax bill.
Mr. Zetwalk, I'll go back kind of in order here. Curious, I saw you at the last hometown meeting that we had here, and you mentioned that you had been to every mosquito control meeting in at least the last year. And I'm curious, what are your thoughts on what they've decided to do with the building and raising taxes?
Well, anybody who follows my Facebook page, I've been blaring out. This is 52% raise of taxes over the last couple of years. I'm totally against that new building. I'm sorry, that project started at $2.5 million and it's up over $6 now. And there's only really 3 people who need to be there full time. I watched them raise the building 15 feet, which automatically took away the space for the stairways, 2 stairways to get up and down, and then you have to have an elevator. I just think cost, and that's one of the things that's part of my campaign.
Mr. Pinder, last time we all met in this hall, incumbent Commissioner Steve Smith made an announcement that was a suspected case of Zika that had been possible in the Florida Keys. That generated a confidentiality resolution that the district just passed. How do you feel about that confidentiality? Should the district commissioners be restricted in that way?
Thank you, Bill. I do believe so. Yes, there are matters that the board speaks with the executive director that may not at that point in time need to be public knowledge necessarily. It could create a panic in the community. And I believe the incumbent's statement may have actually created a panic at that point in time, unnecessarily so.
I'd like to get Steve Evans.
30 seconds. I do believe that what he did was incorrect. This is not for the mosquito control to announce to a group like this or whatever. It's not their responsibility. It's the Department of Health that they are the ones who should be notifying us, not someone on the Mosquito Control Board. So I do feel like that was a lack of judgment and lack of professionalism on his part, and could have really hurt a lot of restaurants and hotels as well.
Go ahead, you guys can respond.
I think it was an overreaction. I've been on several boards, and every board that I've been on knows that sometimes things are given to you confidentially. And at that point, you don't go with it. And I'm with Brother Pinder here that this could have caused a problem, but we did not need a full-blown confidentially document done.
Might as well, John.
I'm not going to criticize anyone. I do want to speak, though, about transparency. I also have been going to a lot of these meetings, and I feel that some of these things, such as the building, such as OxyTech, if these programs, if these meetings had been on TV, like the village council meetings or other things like that, people would know about this, not at the last minute, but when it was going on. And if I get elected to this board, I can tell you, I'm up and down this county all the time. If you don't hear it from someone else, you'll hear it from me first. And I promise you that.
Thank you.
Brandon Pender. The OxyTech release is classified as a test. The reality is that some female OxyTech mosquitoes will be released and other females will mate with OxyTech males. Females bite humans. The protein found in human blood is necessary for reproduction. So one could say humans are a necessary component in the test. As such, shouldn't residents in the release area be assured an individual right to refuse to participate in the experiment rather than being subjected to a majority decision, no matter how safe we might think it is?
That's a very good question. And I believe it's a difficult question to answer because, I mean, what are you going to do? Are you going to move if you don't want to be part of the test and the majority votes for it? At what point at that point, what kind of action does the homeowner, does the resident have to take? If this is put to a majority vote, then, we live in a democratic society. The community requested a referendum, and that's what we're going to give them. Obviously, the board is not bound to that, but it would behoove the board to follow along with the wishes of the community. So I believe, as I said, that's a difficult question to answer, and with the referendum and the majority voting on that matter, then it does exclude the individuals that are still not for that test.
Do you want it to be everybody?
If we could hear Janet.
Okay. But quick.
My comment quickly is, I don't know how you can vote or decide on something that you don't know all the facts on. Again, I think we need to know the facts on Oxytec before anybody can make any decisions about whether they want it, whether we want them, or whether there's some other way to do it. And also, as Bill Shaw says, if you spray them right, they don't bite.
In a similar vein, the non-bonding ballot question on the Key Haven test, it's actually two separate ballot questions. One for countywide voters, one for Key Haven. Which one would you follow? And I guess this, if everybody could touch on it, which one would you follow if they're different?
Give me one person to. Larry. Go ahead.
Larry.
Okay.
Well, if Key Haven votes against it, we definitely should not do the test there. I've been saying this for weeks. If they don't want us, we won't do the test. I just wrote down here, though, that this entire economy down here is based on tourism. In my past life, I counseled kids going to the Air Force Academy. 32-year-old young lady called me yesterday and she says, "What should I do about this? I'm moving down there." And we're getting nationwide publicity from this. So we've got, and Janet just said, spray them right. Well, some of these chemicals are no longer being effective. And we're getting more and more EPA things. We're getting into a corner, and this is what we don't want to be in. We have to do what's right for everybody, for the health of everybody here, and for our economy. And it's a hard decision.
Okay. Well, let's, Brandon.
That is another very difficult question because, and as Larry said, I agree with that. If the residents of Key Haven do not want the test done, then by no means should we force that upon them. The other thing, though, is there are other residents of Monroe County that vote for the test. It still is going to affect the entire county. Mosquitoes do travel, and it is possible that they can mate and migrate to other areas of the county, even if just released in a so-called isolated area.
Time, Brett.
We're really talking about one mosquito, the Aedes aegypti mosquito. It does have the West Nile virus that carries dengue and many of the diseases. And over 725,000 people are killed every year from mosquitoes worldwide. So it's something that I definitely think that we should be prepared for. For Key Haven, if they don't want it, they shouldn't spray it there. It's just that simple. I mean, that's the will of the people. But I do think that Monroe County, we'll see what those results come in at.
Agenda, you can.
Again, I wasn't being flippant when I said they don't bite if you spray them right. I think it's a combination of things, and it goes as simply as emptying your containers.
But Janet, specifically to the question.
If Key Haven says no, absolutely not. No.
This question is for Mr. Hammond, and then if Mr. Pender wants to reply as well, then it would be fine. I am curious what you think they could be doing differently to prevent the spread of Zika to the Keys than they are doing right now.
Well, we don't have any Zika cases in the Keys at this time. So whatever we're doing, it must be doing okay. I hope it continues, but I think in reality that it's just a matter of time, most likely. And I'm sure you've heard that there's been several cases in Miami recently that were not from travel related, so they are checking into those. But, you know, so far it's been good, but we've got to be prepared. You would be very upset with mosquito control if they weren't working behind the scenes right now, every day, trying to be prepared for this, for what could happen. As we've mentioned before, our economy down here is so tourism based that it could be devastating for many, many companies and corporations. So we'll keep up hope that it'll be a while before we get that first case, but we want to be prepared.
I believe an additional step that they could be doing that they're not doing now is implementing newer technologies. Microsoft has actually developed a new trap that is more effective than existing traps and lighter weight. They can be deployed by drones into remote areas, and they are taking a proactive approach, not only with the trap but with the software, that once the drones return the traps with the mosquitoes, they are identified and tested to see if the disease is contained in the mosquito, the virus rather. So I believe that a technological approach could benefit us and allow us to be more proactive.
Janet Wood. The referendum questions aside, do you feel that mosquito control commissioners are elected to make tough decisions or to accede to the demands of the voters?
I've also sat on many boards, the Board for Voices, the Realtor Board. I believe board members are there to make the decisions, but I believe they've been elected to do what the people and their constituents have asked them to do. I think when you get an outcry like this, and I believe there's been a big lack of transparency across the board between the building and the Oxitec. But I think when you get an outcry like this, that things need to just be changed. If I'm elected, I'm listening to who elected me. And that's just not Isla Mirada and a little bit of Marathon. That's everybody countywide. Countywide is not new for me. I've been a guardian ad litem, been with the Coast Guard, and I represent the people. I may be a board member, I could make a decision, but you can bet I'll be asking people about that decision before it's made.
Well, the one word that comes up to me if we get Zika is devastating. That's what will happen down here. And my views are that we've got to be thinking, and I've been going to meetings for a while, and I asked at the last meeting, they put a slide, a 4-year slide. I says, can we keep that 4-year slide and see if we actually do what we're supposed to be doing?
Larry, could I put you to the question though,
Are you elected to make the hard decisions?
Yes, absolutely. I thought devastating answered that question. Because if you have to make a decision, I was in the military 32 years. I don't always agree with everything, but you do what you're supposed to do.
Stephen Hammond. The Key West City Commission weighed in on and established prerequisites for testing GMO mosquitoes, and the tests were then moved to unincorporated Monroe. Should the BOCC weigh in on this decision to test?
I'm not sure. I don't know if that would be a question more for them. Are you saying if, what would the BOCC, I'm not sure what you're saying with that.
Well, the City of Key West has decided some things. Do you think the board should adhere to the decisions of the other, of the local government agencies that take such decisions? And if Monroe County were to do the same thing as the city, what would the board do about that? How would you feel about that in your decision making?
I'm sorry, I don't understand the question.
The City of Key West decided that they were going to lay down some laws about testing in the City of Key West.
Testing?
Yes, testing Oxitec or testing GM mosquitoes. So should the board ignore that? How do you deal with that? And what if the county does the same? And should the county do the same?
If the city wanted to do it, that's certainly that's certainly something the city commissioners will decide, and I'm sure that the Mosquito Control Board would follow their wishes as well as the counties. We do everything. Our purpose is to protect the citizens of Monroe County, and that's what Mosquito Control is trying to do here. We're trying to find the latest technologies available to pursue those things, and in addition to the aircraft, the helicopters, to have every possible latest technology available in case that time comes.
There's 4 or 5 alternate test sites that have been developed. And one of the things that they're looking at doing is, like, we know if there was AZEJET sufficient numbers up in Ocean Reef, they want us to come up there. But we would look at the precinct by precinct. If we have one of our test sites, and every area is not good. If they don't have AZEJET, it doesn't make any difference. So we match up the test site with a precinct that wants us to come.
Each year, he's, for as long as he's been here, it's about 5 or 6 years, I guess, Director Michael Doyle, he's hardly gotten glowing job reviews. They've been very, very mixed. If I could start with Janet, maybe go down. Your take on the District Director Doyle?
I have been attending meetings since about February, and he's been treated pretty roughly. I can tell you this much, every time I've called him, he's called me back very quickly, he's answered my questions. I think it's pretty rough sometimes when you're the one that's getting the heat, when everybody else kind of, let's put it this way, he's taking the heat for everything that has happened because of the lack of the transparency with people not knowing about what was going on. Personally, I like him. He's answered my questions, he's been very informative, he's been very, very frank and honest. Sometimes that's part of the job. You take the heat when you're in that position.
We have the best mosquito control probably in the world, and he's the...
Wait, hang on. We have to let Larry turn his phone off.
I thought I did.
I couldn't resist.
I thought I did.
All right, Larry, start over.
Okay. Well, I mean, we have one of the best in the world. Director Doyle's been going all over the world discussing, and I'm totally in support of him, of what he does. I mean, look at our economy, we're going good. They just had the first Zika baby up in New York. By the way, they estimate that baby will take $10 million the rest of its life. That's how much to keep it alive. I was appalled when Michael wanted to get some continuing education training and work in the lab, and the board said no.
I believe Director Doyle was chosen for his position for a reason, and as previously mentioned, he is the one that's in the spotlight. He is the one that's faced with the tough decisions, and you know, he is the one that advises the boards on the technical matters. He has the experience and the knowledge and the skills necessary for the job. And as Janet and Larry had mentioned, he's been very open with email, phone calls. I've always been able to get a hold of him, and he responds quickly.
Well, we're unanimous on this question for sure. Every one of us have contacted him by email, phone calls, whatever. He's always gotten back to us. He has traveled, as has been said, throughout the world. He's trying a lot of new ideas. He's going to different places and checking those new ideas out. And I'm proud to have him here. I think he's doing a great job.
This is for Janet. I think Mr. Doyle came under some fire from board members for reducing the amount of staff that they have, especially in the inspector area. What do you think about, do you think that they need all those staff back, or do you think that putting that money into other areas is better?
I definitely think we need that staff. And I want to say something too, with the staff, with the building. I know I've heard a few things that one of the reasons that they were building a building in Cudjoe was because staff didn't want to drive to Marathon or to Key Largo. Well, we all know right now, you can't even make it from Cudjoe to Marathon if you wanted to. So that's one of the things I just want to say about the building, that I do think that, what was the question again? Oh, the staff, absolutely, absolutely. Especially with right now what's going on, the staff, the boots on the ground is the best thing we've got going on. And I have to agree with Larry, we've got one of the best mosquito controls, I think, in the world. Everybody works very hard. I can tell you within 24 hours, there was an inspector out to one of my brother's properties, and there was Aedes aegypti there. We solved that with some of the BTI and some fish. But yes, the staff has to be there. I mean, that's what we've got right now, and that's what's protecting us. And so far, we're so good. The sky's not falling in.
Bill, the last full question.
Mr. Zetwak, if the federal and state agencies say that we can't spray for mosquitoes in certain neighborhoods, certain keys, would you support a rebate for the taxpayers in those areas?
Well, I don't think that's going to happen. The average mosquito flies 2 blocks. So you can say not here, not there. And in flippant moments, I've heard that, you know, if a certain place doesn't want us, we just won't go in there. But what happens then is that they breed and they go get everybody else. I referenced my next door neighbor who's about 5 times wealthier than me, and I have to go empty his water, take his garbage cans back, and there's water everywhere. And I hate that. But we have to spray when we can. And some people don't realize that now we even told when we can spray. So you may not think you're getting sprayed, but you are. Did I answer your question?
All right, we can do a quick question round, but this is for one question for one candidate, and then we'll let them wrap up. Question has to be shorter than their answer.
Okay. I'm going to move over to workforce housing for a second here. You know, it's really hard to find affordable housing in the Keys. Are mosquito control employees being paid enough or too much, or, you know, how's that going? And let's ask, who would know? Ask Stephen Howland.
Thank you. If I worked at mosquito control, I would say, no, I'm not getting paid enough. If I'm the taxpayer paying the salary, I'd say that we could probably do a little bit better on how much we are paying them. There are a great bunch of people over there. They're very responsive. They've got great customer service. They care about the citizens of Monroe County. I believe the Chamber of Commerce puts out a salary survey every year, and I would probably tend to look at that and give a better answer, and I have not, but I think that the employees are pleased with their pay. I'm sure they would like to have more.
This is for Brandon. Aside from the Oxytec question, on the technology side, what work could the district be doing? They bought a drone. I don't know if it's in use yet. What work could they be doing specifically on technology?
As I mentioned earlier, there is Project Premonition, is a project that Microsoft has just begun, or in the beginning phases of implementing. Like I said, they have more effective traps that are lighter. They can be operated by drones in remote areas. They also have the software that can test the mosquitoes, semi-autonomously, to be able to be proactive. If a mosquito is found that contains the virus that can be transmitted, then we can react to that, hopefully before someone is bitten. Also, there are, remote sensors, remote traps, water sensors that can be purchased, that we know if there's an area with high water probability of breeding, that we'll know that ahead of time and we can go out there and react to that, not just wait to discover it. There's also other types of technology that are being implemented with mosquitoes infected with the Wolbachia bacteria that does sterilize a male mosquito.
This question's for Larry. If the federal government goes through with its plans to make more money available to mosquito control districts in the fight for Zika? What do you think the district should do with the share that it gets?
I think we should keep spending it to fight Zika. I think that's our #1 issue right now, and whatever it takes. Now, what's going on is we're not going to get a lot of money because we're the best. So it's going to take, a lot of that money is going to places that have field tests and things like this. We've got all this in place. To me, we've got to keep pushing the envelope, and because Miami gets it, it's so big it's not going to hurt them. If we get it, it's going to hurt us. So any money we get, I think we should put into new technology. Some of the new technology is make our airplanes fly straighter lines, stay right where they are. We're doing this. I mean, we've got some of the best technology in our aircraft that you could possibly believe. I think Michael getting out and trying and working in the lab, that's what he wanted to do that one day. He wanted to go spend 3 days working on a new Wolbachia from the University of Kentucky. We've got to keep pushing the limits because
Okay, Steve Hammond. Steve,
You really ought to be Janet.
just one question.
Go ahead.
I was going to say, oh, okay, well, let's go to Janet. Janet, you put any stock in natural controls for mosquitoes? Like, should we be raising dragonflies or mosquito-eating bats?
I don't know if any of you recall, but at the first hometown pack at Salute, I had the fish that love Aedes aegypti, and one of the demonstrations, even though it was very hot that day, was to pour the Aedes aegypti larvae and watch the fish eat them. My brother bought a new nursery at 88.7. He has a beautiful waterfall, beautiful pond. We have those fish in there. There is not any Aedes aegypti. I put 3 fish in first, then 5 more to make sure the first 3 didn't go belly up. There's no Aedes aegypti, and you've been there, Todd. It's a pretty big piece of property. Yes, they're natural ways.
Okay, well, let's do our wrap up here. Stephen, you want to kick it off? 1 minute, tell us how great you are and why you want to be on mosquito control.
Thank you, Todd. Thank you, hometown. I appreciate the opportunity to speak here. A little about myself. I do have a college degree from Sanford University in Birmingham, Alabama. I have a master's degree in business administration from the same college. I have attended many, many hours at Mosquito Control, going to the meetings, as well as listening to their recordings and all that they have on their website. I am professional. I've been a 16-year resident of Key West. I've owned my own business. I've been a businessman for 35 years. And I know what it's like to go to sleep at night knowing that you've got payroll to make and budgets, and so I know I can add a lot to the board. I ask for your vote on August 30th. It's Stephen Hammond. Thank you.
Again, I'd like to thank Todd and Sheldon and Hometown PAC and the studios of Key West. I'm committed primarily to the health and safety of our community. I've worked in hospitality in the Keys for over 7 years. I've also worked in the technology field also during that time. I believe, I know how important the industry is, and I can also bring the new technology to the board and thorough research for that technology. We need to bring honesty and integrity to the board. I will be representative of the people, an advocate for the people, if you will. Also be dedicated to listening to the people and going to the meetings and being there. I haven't been able to attend all the meetings, but I have watched all of them online. And again, I just ask for your support and your vote on August 30th. I'm Brandon Pender. Thank you.
I'd like to thank Hometown, the studios, and you, the audience, because this is a huge crowd, biggest one that I've talked to in the last 3 or 4 months. I mentioned my community involvement. I'm very involved in the emergency medicine area down in Alamorada. I volunteer at the hospital in the emergency room. Leadership, 31 years or so in the Air Force. I'm a colonel there. I had a life support unit, which was keep our air crew alive back in 1976, that was voted best in the Air Force. 10 years ago, I was recruiting kids for the Air Force Academy and ROTC, and my unit was #1 out of 84 worldwide. Education-wise, I got a Bachelor of Arts, I got a Master's of Arts in Teaching. My avocation is actually education, and I've got a law degree from the University of Louisville. And what I want to bring to the board is just good visual responsibility to the board. That's what I want to do. I want to spend your money wisely.
I am the candidate that has the countywide experience. Between the Guardian Ad Litem for over 6 years and Coast Guard for 15, I have been countywide from Ocean Reef to Key West on a weekly, daily sometimes, but yearly, all the time. I'm still involved in both of those. I'm the candidate that's been doing this. I'm the candidate that realizes it's a 24/7 job. This is not something that you go to a meeting once a week or once a month or whatever. It never stops. And I am the candidate that has been doing that. Countywide's not new to me. I know how it goes, and I'm a very, very hard worker. So I hope that you will make the decision, because Janet would be your best candidate on August 30th. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. These are the Republican primary delegates for mosquito control, District 3 and 4. Now, we have something a little unique in that for the City Commission race, District 6, we're going to bring Clayton Lopez up. Where is Clayton? Oh, Clayton, come on. While he's coming up, I want to point out our other Kelly from Audio Video in Paradise, and they do all our recording. We're trying to live stream if you're on a regular laptop. I've got some messages that it's not working on mobile phones, but tomorrow you can go on, well, later in the week you'll be able to go on YouTube. And with that, you can go through it. Everything we've done for years is on YouTube. So if you're really bored, you can see hours and hours. You can binge watch Hometown. That would be the way to do it. So, let me give a little background here for Commissioner Clayton Lopez. He has an opponent. His opponent's name is Nathan Brock. Nathan works for the government, and he is here. So Nathan, wave to, where are you? Oh, here he is. For everybody, it's kind of unique. Nathan works for the government. I don't know all the details of it, but because of that, he's subject to a thing called the Hatch Act. And as does Commissioner Lopez.
So am I.
Oh, I understand, but let me talk. Brandon was not able to get permission to speak today, so he can't come up. Commissioner Lopez does have permission to speak. Rather than have a question and answer and possibly be unfair, we're just going to give Commissioner Lopez a couple of minutes, 3 minutes to just, because we all know, well, we're not being unfair. Clayton, you have the microphone for a little bit. Mayor's candidates will get ready to be on deck.
The mayor doesn't do that. He doesn't let me talk that long.
The mayor doesn't have Sheldon in the front row.
Oh God, I've got Sheldon and Richard. Listen, it's good to be here in front of you once again. This is so familiar because I'm sitting up here once again alone. But you know, all I can say is that you guys, you already know me. You already know some of the things that I've done. You already know some. You know just about everything that I stand for, because everything about me is an open book. Everything. There's nothing that I can be asked or that is in my background that you don't already know. As I said last time in here, the majority of my constituents actually already have my personal cell phone number. So, you know, there's very little about Clayton Lopez that you don't already know. Some of it I will grant you. You may not like all of it, but here's the deal. I guarantee you that we're on the upper percentile of those things on which we agree. So, and that said, I'm about being a consensus builder. I look at being a part of the City Commission as being a part of a team. It's a part of a team that leads the rest of the staff that runs our city. I think each member of the commission has unique strengths, and some have some weaknesses, but some unique strengths. But the good thing is that wherever one of us falls short, the others have the ability and the opportunity to jump in and fill that void, because again, we are a team. And that's the way I look at it, and I think that that's what's needed. That's what keeps us moving forward. That's what's gotten us to where we are, and that's what's going to move us forward in the years to come. It's one of the reasons that the Citizen and the Keynoter and even the Blue Paper, and sometimes Bill Becker has always has referred to me so frequently as the swing vote. And one of the most complimentary things that can ever be said to a politician, I heard said to me just last week, and that's that you are unpredictable. We know that we can trust your honesty because you are unpredictable. You're going to weigh it out, and you may go our way this time, and you may not this time or next time. But we know that we can count on you to be honest, and that's what I'm all about. And that's it. Thank you so much. And again, you all know me. Vote for Clayton Lopez on August 30th.
Thank you, Clayton. I'll say there's every time we have an event, there's kind of an unofficial contest that John Dick often wins for best tie. John's not here tonight.
He loaned me. No,
And Nathan, we hope to see you at a subsequent event. So with that, with the mayor's candidates, please come up. Craig Cates, Randy Becker, and Ed Crane. And this will be our last set of candidates for the night, and we'll still be out of here before 7:30.
Larry, you're going to start off. I'll let him introduce himself.
All right, everybody settle in. Ed, why don't you start off by introducing yourself very quickly. Now use the microphone.
Thanks, Don. Ed Crane.
Okay. Hang on. You can say a little bit more about yourself.
Ed Crane. I do the weekly Keys Blast. It goes out to 7,400 people each week. And I'm looking forward to having fun at this. Thank you.
Craig Cates, I'm your mayor, present mayor, and been elected 4 times. This is my 5th term. If I'm re-elected, look forward to working with everyone here to keep Key West moving forward. I think Key West is in great shape so far, and I'd like to continue.
And I'm Randy Becker, glad to be here as well. I'm running for mayor because I want to live in a city that has a vision that will follow and will fulfill.
Thank you, guys. Something very unique. We mentioned it at the last event, but this is a primary race. And whoever wins this race will then face a write-in opponent who will remain nameless, but he's at the back of the room. He's a write-in, so he doesn't get any free advertising. With that, let's start out with Larry from the Keynoter. You were first.
We had the city had a recent meeting on Uber, drew hundreds and hundreds of people, mostly against Uber, but the people on the other side say basically the city's allowed a monopoly on the cab companies, and there need to be changes in how often the lottery for taxi cab licenses are available. And I guess I'd direct this at the mayor first, and I'd like to hear from the other two.
Well, yes, it was a very long meeting, and there was a lot of people that spoke, mostly all from the taxi companies. But yeah, I believe Uber is the future, but those changes can't come overnight. There's a lot of issues with Uber, legal issues. Transportation is one of the most heavily regulated businesses in the country, and it's regulated for a reason, for safety, for public safety. When you get yourself in one of those cars, you need to make sure that that person is not a criminal, not a thief, is a good driver, a good product. So it's difficult. I think that's the future. I think we're moving in that direction, but we weren't ready to move forward without the state stepping in, and they're supposed to step in this year and set state regulations, which we would have to follow.
Okay, but what I actually specifically asked about is what people perceive to be a monopoly on the lottery licenses and opening up that process more often and to more people.
Well, I know they perceive that, but it's a regulated business, and they only allow so many. When you regulate, you control their rates that they can charge, and all the requirements on them. You can't let somebody come in with no regulations. So that amount was set in the past. We didn't set those numbers, and if more taxis could be added or should be added, we could. But it is a regulated business, and I think it's fair.
I like Uber. It's a capitalistic society we live in, so why not? The technology is great. The only issue is, let's make sure that the Uber company and the drivers pay the city perhaps the equivalent of the licenses. I'm sure that needs to be ironed out, but why not let the Uber drivers come in?
I think there's a separate an issue out between Uber, Lyft, and other ride-sharing services and the modern technologies that they offer. And I think the city should be focusing first and foremost on saying to our taxi companies, if you want to stay in business around here, you need to start offering some of those things like paying for, knowing what the fee will be in advance, seeing where the cab coming to you is, have a definite time of arrival, pay more by credit card online and not have to worry about it in the cab, and some of those features. Challenge our cab companies to come up to the modern level.
This is for the mayor, but I would like to hear what the other two think about this as well. We often hear people say that Key West is full. We are at our limit, parking-wise, car-wise, people-wise. I'm curious what the mayor would say to this, as far as there's a perception at times that some decisions are made that benefit people that own tourist-related businesses, perhaps to the detriment of local citizens. Do you think that it's skewed that way sometimes, or do you think that you support residents' quality of life over tourism and tourism-related businesses' needs?
Well, I've always supported quality of life, and I think I've said that many, many times, and I've said it all through the years that Key West is busy as it can be. This is all we can handle. We can't just keep bringing more and more people, so we have to become more efficient. We started trying to upscale the visitors to spend more money, so we had quality, not quantity, years ago. This started about 8 years ago, even with the TDC. So I think that has worked. I think we do have a quality visitor, but obviously some people want more and more. I don't agree. I think we have enough. That's why I don't support any more transient rentals. I don't support any more hotels being built, and I don't support a lot of the expansion projects. So.
I think the town does get to be full, and I think instead of worrying about the fullness, we need to talk about the ways we get around this town. And certainly we need more public transit, we need more availability of ways to get around on bicycle, on foot, making it more of a pedestrian-friendly city. But we don't need to just keep having more and more people. Maybe we do need to go more for that quality, but maybe it's less about drinking and more about arts and entertainment and culture and literature that will attract people here that won't just clutter the streets.
Ms. Harris, your newspaper, which I love, I copied all the page 2 citizen comments the last year and a half. Now I address the blue paper and the Keynoter as well. But you had a poll saying, what do you think is a good solution for Key West in the affordable crisis? And 38% of the people said put up a sign, go away, we're full. But of course, that's not the way to do this. And as these two distinguished gentlemen know, my primary platform, one of my primary platforms is to support the arts. So let's get a better class of tourists in this town, and let's really make this a great town.
Okay. Question for Randy Becker. Yep. No relation.
No.
The Navy recently rejected the city's request to use Truman Harbor. Would you support legal action against the federal government to get access to Truman Harbor?
No, I would not. I think we don't need to be in a fight with the federal government or the Navy over that harbor. I don't see of it being a great use to us. If we're talking about a ferry to Cuba that involves cars and trucks, that always went out of the Stock Island harbors. It never went out of there. I think there's a better use for that in terms of the historic waterfront that's developing down there. And I think there are reasons for the Navy to keep the use of that.
Mayor King, back in 2013, when you voted yes for the trailer park redevelopment on Simonson Street that moved about 100 low-income renters out in favor of new high-end homes, you stated that you had to vote yes, but we had a problem with our affordable housing code and that redevelopment projects should also be required to provide 30% affordable housing on site. Do you still feel that way, and why hasn't the code been revised in all these years?
We are revising that code, and I agree with you. Redevelopment like that should have had 30%, but the law wasn't that way. Our code wasn't that way at the time, and it still hasn't, but we're bringing forward changes in that in the future. So I understand that, and a lot of these projects, people want them done a little differently, but we're required to follow the codes and the guidelines that we're given to work with. If we want to make some changes, then we need to move them, but there's not a whole lot of those projects going on, and we all know that area was very blighted. It was a very rough neighborhood in there, and those trailers were falling to pieces. So I think the project is a good project, but we need more affordable housing.
If I could just one follow-up there. So, but it's been 3 years, so how come it takes that long?
Because it's a difficult, you're talking people's property rights, and once they have a property, and it has 40 units there, they're not building anything more, and they want to improve them, and then you tell them that you got to make 30% of that affordable. We're taking 30% value, maybe depreciating your property 30%. That's taking people's property rights away that America is built on. So it's very difficult. It isn't just because somebody wants it, we can take it from them.
Can I respond to that, please? I think one of the problems we have is that many of our regulations are created out of response to situations rather than being built toward the kind of city we want to be. So instead of trying to fix something with a certain circumstance, why aren't we putting together land use regulations and conditions which we predict will take us to where we want to go? And I believe America was not built on land rights, it was built on the common good.
I would go to the mayor too and ask the others to respond. It's been quite a while since the Sunset Marina condo lawsuit with the city to have the homeless shelter moved was settled. And we have not heard anything about the homeless shelter moving. Is COTS going to be moving? And if so, where? We kept hearing Easter seals, and then we heard Easter seals for affordable housing.
All right, it has been very frustrating, but I would like to comment to that. America was built on property rights. So, that being said, yes, we're moving. We voted to move it to Easter seals. It's been frustrating for years. We changed commission, and they vote against it. We start to get to go back in the right direction, and then other commissioners change their mind. They don't want to fund in a certain way. It's very difficult to get anything passed. We built a consensus. I think we're moving forward. We went as far as approving Easter seals. Now we need to move forward with the funding for it, and that's where we're at now. And that's where with some commissioners that are stalling this because of that.
Randy. Yeah. Everybody's Larry.
I get called Larry a lot. I don't know why. We do need to resolve this. We also recognize that our temporary overnight shelter is in a transitional point itself as we look at different ways of dealing with issues of homelessness, and we're going to have a variety of models in town. So to focus all of our efforts and thoughts and that on the one model that is that one is to say that we're ignoring the other possibilities that are out there. Yes, it needs to be resolved soon, funded, absolutely agree with you. But we also have to look at this as a multifaceted approach.
What are your thoughts, Ed?
I agree. I think it's a difficult proposition. I don't know that much about the homeless situation. Of course, I have lots of reading to do. I think what we really should concentrate on as well, and I'm going through this with my parents, I just flew back late last night, is senior citizen availability. I think that we need to make Key West a great paradise for the elderly. Just think of what a great place it would be if we'd had...
Well, to get more thoughts on that.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
This question is for Randy and for Ed. What do you think of the city's recent move to assist the purchasers of Perry Court with $12.5 million?
I have a problem with that. I'll tell you my problem. It's not the underlying problem of the city finding ways to assure that land will be kept forever, and forever is a technical term, it can always be changed, but for a long time, to be able to be affordable housing. But I do have a problem that the dollar amount funded seemed to not be justified on any basis other than a certain fraction of the purchase price. It was just a manipulation of the money available to help it. It should have been based upon actual valuations of what was bought for that money. It should have been based on hardcore financial determinations. I also don't like the way it was done as a plan B after a plan A failed. And I have to tell you, I like the plan B better than I like the plan A. But I keep wondering if there wasn't a plan C that would have been even better for our city.
I agree, Randy. I think Commissioner Weekly and Mayor Cates and the vote that we had on that, I think they really, really tried hard to get affordable housing in this town. I totally disagree with giving the Kornfeld Group 12.5. It is a moderate, medium income environment. I think the money in terms of the Monroe County Land Authority could have been better spent in Porciana, in Trumbo, in Truman, or Caroline Street.
Yes, since I was a target there.
You're kind of going to be the target.
Okay. I think it was a good investment. There was a value there. What we did was we purchased, we bought the rights to that property for affordable housing for the perpetuity for $12.5 million. I think it was a great deal for the city. The citizens didn't want to own it. I don't think they didn't want affordable housing. I think they didn't want to own the property and have the city and the land authority maintain it. I think they want affordable housing. This is just one step. It's a huge pie. We're only taking small bites at a time.
Question for Ed. You based your campaign on letting people vote by email on the important issues, and then you would reflect that in your vote. Why not just get an email counter instead of electing you? Or aren't you abdicating your responsibility to make the hard decisions?
Sure, thank you, Bill. And let me say I really enjoy your radio show.
Not quite as much now.
Answer the question.
I think it's a great idea. I think I've been getting nothing but positive reaction. And when I said this 2 weeks ago at the Hometown Pack, I said we have to iron this out. But the dissatisfaction, and everyone knows me, I'm not going to say anything bad at all. I think the dissatisfaction with certain things going on in the city, I think, why not give you guys the vote? I think we can set up some sort of website where people will vote. And why not? I mean, 7 votes for the whole city. And I agree, we get voted in. But this way it ensures, right, Sheldon? Ensures that, exactly, that you guys are heard. And not only are you heard, but you'll get to vote, which is really amazing, I think.
Sure, Randy. Yeah, I think you elect people to make the decisions. I think the important thing is not that you keep checking back with them every single time. How am I doing? How am I doing? You know, I wouldn't be the mayor of New York City. How am I doing, sort of thing. You do check on a somewhat regular basis in conversation. But I think it's incumbent upon people wanting to be elected to let the people know what their positions are on things. I've published a series of position papers so that you can know before you vote for me where I stand on some things. That way you know where the votes are going. Otherwise, maybe we do have to keep asking.
Yeah, Ed Crane, just a little follow-up on that. I mean, what would you do if the people voted overwhelmingly for something you thought was just a terrible idea for the city? You know, how would you handle that?
Thank you, Naja. I don't know. If it was something that I put out there as the lead person on the agenda, and I was really passionate about it, I may not go that way. But if it's overwhelming, where the citizens wanted to do something and I'm elected on this platform, I think I would confer, well, the sunshine laws, of course, I would confer with the other commissioners and we talk about it. But like I say, it has to be ironed out. And let me just also say, I love your blue paper. I think what you and Arnold does, I also have like from issues 177 down to 90. And no, seriously, I think you guys are great. I want to work for you, and thank you very much. I do.
Larry.
In a city so small, single-member districts for the election needed the Voting Rights Act used to cover changes in voting laws and processes for Key West. That's no longer the case. So are single-member districts still needed, and why or why not in such a small city?
What do you want to answer?
Oh, I guess Randy, and then we can go down.
I do think single-member districts are needed. I'm definitely an advocate of those. And I'll tell you why. I've seen too many cities where they didn't have that. And a small group of people, a small percentage of the people, control all the seats on the city commission. Yes, they're spread out across the whole city, but no one section really feels that it's represented except for that group that has its own special interests. So I believe that by having it focused in neighborhoods, in places where people have certain common interests, with the overarching responsibility to the entire city, I think it's important a single district, absolutely.
I think there's pros and cons for that, but I think single-member districts in Key West works very well. As far as for the county, it's too spread out. They need to have the whole county vote on because we're so spread out, but Key West is so close, so intertwined with every issue. Single-member districts work, and you have commissioners that live right there, know the people. Like Commissioner Clayton said, got his cell number and all. I think it works well in Key West.
I think there are pros and cons, and I'm not quite sure yet.
Mayor Cates, this question is for you. What is the one thing that you are the proudest of that you've done while you've been in office, and what's the one thing you regret?
The proudest is the Vietnam Memorial, to bring the community together. Thank you. I think that the whole community was very proud of that, and I was very proud myself. Do I have any really regrets? No, I can't say that I have any. If I had done some things maybe a little different, yeah, that's probably, we all would. But I don't think I've got anything I really have to regret.
Question for Ed. When the mayor was first elected, one of the first things he did was push to abolish the blue law. You know, no alcohol sales on a Sunday morning. Got rid of that. Now, the county used to have bars open 24 hours a day. Would you support that for Key West, 24-hour-a-day bars?
No. In fact, I was reading one of your articles, Ms. Harris, and it was talking about 1945, how the police officers would go into the bars in uniforms, how they didn't want to sell liquor on Sundays. One of my platforms is the TDC and the QS Chamber, and this town gets promoted, drink it till you drop. I don't think that's right. We have 50+ art galleries in this town. We have beautiful museums. We have phenomenal garden venues. So no, I don't think we should have the bars open, but definitely till 4 o'clock. I mean, why not get that? Why not have
No, I don't believe they should be open around the clock. I'd rather really like to see them close at 2 instead of 4. Nothing good happens in them late hours. But there's some, you know, people that want them to keep over. It is a business. And I'd just like to make one more point. You know, Key West is not promoted for drinking all the time. Key West, it's not. If you ever see the TDC commercials, it's our arts constantly, music, everything. So that's a misconception.
Randy, real quick. Yeah, very quickly. I don't see any reason to change anything as it is now because I don't think there's a problem per se. And I do remember the airport bar.
And the Boca Chica, right?
Yeah. If you got a quick one, or going into our time.
Quick one. Okay, so I should just pick one of you, then I'll pick the mayor. Do you think that the mayor and city commissioners should meet with developers behind closed doors before public hearings are held to approve or deny major development projects? And if they do, should they disclose those meetings to the public?
Yeah, if they meet with, they should disclose that they've met. There's people that'll meet with you and talk to you about the issues, or you could ask questions. Generally, all those meetings have maybe the city manager there, or the plan department. If a commissioner meets with, or the mayor, a developer, they're trying to get information, not any shady deals going on. And they disclose that they have met with them. And I think that's done every time.
So just as a follow-up, did you meet with the developers of Sunset Marina about their development prior to
That's getting too technical.
No, I didn't meet with the developer. One of them called me and said, is there any issues you want to ask me about? I said, no, that's not a meeting.
Randy, your thoughts?
I just want to say closed doors are always a problem. And I think things need to be out in the sunshine as much as possible. I know you agree with it, and there's no reason to do that. To have it behind closed doors.
We'll do our wrap up. And you see, we take voting. We let the vote. Randy, why don't you start off a minute, wrap it up, because we're going to be over time and it kills me.
Oh, I'm Randy Becker. I love living in Key West. I love it for all the dreams I have, and they're probably some of the dreams that you have. And out of those dreams come a vision for the kind of city we want to be in, say, 2030, the kind of place we want to have, where people will come and say we want to come to be there. A city that is open for all people, that has housing for all people, economic possibilities for all, and opportunities for all. And I think we're only going to get there when we act on a sense of vision of what that might be like, rather than spending all of our time, money, and projects on trying to fix things we've neglected in the past. So I'm running on a program of visionary thinking about this city, and I hope you'll join me in that vision making. That's Randy Becker on August 30th.
been your mayor for 7 years, and I think we have a vision. I'm fourth generation here. I grew up here. I raised my kids here, and my granddaughter's growing up here. I want Key West to continue to be the great place to live. Not only be profitable, people can earn a living and have a good business, kids go to safe schools, but also be able to enjoy the waters around here. So yes, I think Key West has a vision. A vision is quality of life, successful business atmosphere, and safety. Crime has gone down for the last 7 years in double-digit figures every year. Properties going up, jobs have increased. We're the lowest unemployment rate in the whole state of Florida. So our taxes are lower than the counties. Our share, we're very frugal with your money, managed very properly, and I think there's very few places that can say that. So I ask for your vote again to keep Key West moving in the right direction. Let's keep working together to keep Key West moving forward.
There are many additional issues. Of course, come over and say, hey, senior housing, I mentioned what a paradise it would be to build many places for the seniors. I think when you come into town on US1, I think those new hotels that have been built, I think we need to spruce that up. We need our visitors to see something really nice, so I'd like to work on that. And of course, the eco issues. Larry, Kay, Bill, Naja, your papers reflect on the eco issues. I think this is primary. I mean, we're going to be underwater, and I want to say to the Commission, Monroe County, congratulations on reducing greenhouse gases by 20%, 3-4 years before. And Ed Craig, I mean, you guys know me. I think I've been a great ambassador for this town. I think some great things will happen. And it was nice hanging out with all of you.
Thank you, Ed. Nice hanging with you, too. Thank you, everyone. Thank our panelists. It's 7:32. I apologize, but stick around, talk to your elected officials, and we will see you August 8th.